For this video, we'll be using pink, purple, black, and white yarn, a 4mm crochet hook. We have 2 eyes and a nose, stitch markers, a darning needle, a pair of scissors, fabric glue, and a toothpick. The stitches used in this tutorial include the single crochet, double crochet, triple crochet, increase, decrease, slip stitch, magic circle, and a chain stitch. When sewing the Hello Kitty Vampire together, there will be 2 options. Option 1 is where she's standing, facing forward, and then we have option 2, where she has a side view and looks like she could fly. We're going to start with the head. To make the head, we'll be using the pattern that we used to make our previous Hello Kitty keychain. I cut and pasted the pattern from that tutorial right here. To make the head, we're going to start with 6 chains. We're going to make a slip knot, and then we're going to get our hook and make 6 chains. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. For our first row, we're going to chain 1 and then make 14 single crochets. There's 1, and then we're going to add in our stitch marker. Two, 3, 4, 5, and in this top stitch we're going to do number 6, 7, and 8. There's 6, 7, and number 8. Then we're going to move on to stitch number 9. Ten, 11, 12, and in this last stitch we're going to do number 13 and number 14. Now we've completed row number 2. Let's count our crochets. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. For row number 2, we're going to start with 6 single crochets. Here's crochet number 1. And of course we're going to add our stitch marker. Crochet number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and there's crochet number 6. And in this top stitch here, we're going to be doing 3 single crochets in this 1 stitch. So we're going to be doing crochet number, here we go, number 7, number 8, and crochet number 9, all in this 1 top stitch. And then we're going to continue with stitch number 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Now that we're in this final stitch, we're going to do another 3 single crochets and 1 stitch. So in this top stitch here, we're going to do 3 crochets. So that's number 16, 17, and crochet number 18. And now we're finished with row number 3. Let's count our crochets. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and number 18. Now we're ready for row number 3. Again, we're going to start with 6 single crochets. There's our first crochet. We're going to get our stitch marker and mark that. Then we're going to do our second, third, fourth, fifth, and this is our 6th single crochet. In the next 3 stitches, we're going to do increases. Here's our first increase, our second increase, and now we're on our 3rd increase. Then we're going to do 6 single crochets. There's crochet number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then our 6 single crochet. And then in our last 3 stitches, we're going to do increases. There's our first increase, our second increase, and finally our 3rd increase. Let's count our stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and number 24. For row number 4, we're going to start with 7 single crochets. There's 1. We're going to add in our stitch marker, of course. We have 2. And now we're going to speed this up. And like magic, we're on crochet number 7. And then we're going to do a sequence of an increase and a single crochet, and we're going to do that twice. So here's our increase to a single crochet, then an increase, and then a single crochet. Then we're going to do an increase, and then we're going to do 7 single crochets going across, and these will be crochets number 16 through 22. And now we're on crochet number 22, and the next crochets we're going to do an increase and a single crochet twice. So there's our increase, a single crochet, and an increase, oops, to a single crochet, and we're going to end with an increase. We're coming up to a knot in our yarn. And with this crochet, we're finished with our increase and with row number 4. For row number 5, we're going to again start with 7 single crochets. There's our first crochet, and we want to make sure that our knot is in the inside. And we're going to put in our stitch marker. And we're going to go into our second crochet, and then speed this up. Now we're on our 7th single crochet, and then we're going to move on to the sequence of an increase in 2 single crochets, and we're going to do it twice. So here is our increase, and then 2 single crochets. There's 1 and 2. Then we're going back to doing an increase, and then 2 single crochets, and then we're going to do an increase, then we're going to do 8 single crochets, which are number 18 through 25. And now we're on crochet number 25, and then we're going to do an increase, and 2 single crochets. There's 1 and 2 single crochets, and we're going to repeat that again. So we're going to do an increase and 2 single crochets. There's 1 and 2. Then we're going to do an increase, and we're going to end with the single crochet. And now we're done with row number 5. Okay, and let's count our crochets. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, and number 36. For row number 6, we're going to do 36 crochets all the way around. We're going to start with our first crochet, and we're going to add in our stitch marker, and then we're going to continue until we get to 36 single crochets. And like magic, we're finished with our 36 crochet, and we're finished with row number 6. For row number 7, we're going to start with 10 single crochets. There's our first crochet, and then we're going to put our lovely stitch marker on that crochet. And then we're just going to continue until we reach 10 single crochets. And now we're on our 10th crochet, and we're going to do an increase, and then 2 single crochets, then an increase, and then we're going to do 14 single crochets. There's our first single crochet, and we're just going to continue until we have 14 single crochets. And like magic, we're done with our 14th single crochet. Now we're moving on to an increase, then 2 single crochets, and next we're going to do an increase, and then 4 single crochets. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's count our crochets. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, and then 40. For rows 8, 9, 10, and 11, we're going to do 40 crochets all the way around. We're going to put our stitch markers in, our first crochets, and when we get 4 of them, then we know we're done with all 4 rows. So we're just going to continue this until we have 4 rows of 40. And like magic, we finished all 4 of our rows of 40 single crochets, and we're ready to move on to row number 12, which begins our decreases. For row number 12, we're going to start with 12 single crochets. There's 1, and of course we're going to add our lovely stitch marker on that first stitch, and then from this point we're going to go on until we reach 12 single crochets. And once we've gotten up to our 12th single crochet, we're going to do a decrease and a single crochet. So we're doing our decrease and then a single crochet, and then we're going to repeat this, a decrease and then a single crochet. Then we're going to do a decrease and then we're going to go into 12 single crochets. There's crochet number 1. We're going to speed it up. And once we get up to our 12th crochet, we're going to do a decrease and a single crochet, and we're going to do this twice. So we have our decrease, then our single crochet, then we're going to do a decrease, and a single crochet. And then finally we're going to end with a decrease. And now we're finished with our row number 12, and we're going to count our crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, and number 34. For row number 13, we're going to do 34 single crochets all the way around. We'll start with our first single crochet, and of course we're going to add our stitch marker here, and then we're just going to continue until we make 34 single crochets. And once we completed all 34 single crochets, we're ready to move on to row number 14. For row number 14, we're going to start with a decrease, and then we're going to move on. Let's put in our stitch marker, and then we're going to move on to 9 single crochets. There's 1. And then we're just going to continue. After our 9th single crochet, we're going to do a decrease and a single crochet 2 times. So we're going to do a decrease, then a single crochet, then again a decrease, and a single crochet. Then we're going to do a decrease, and then we're going to do 9 single crochets. There's 1, and like magic, we finished crochet number 9. Now we're going to do a decrease and a single crochet twice. There's our decrease and a single crochet. Then we're going to do a decrease and end with a single crochet. And now we're finished with row number 14. Let's count our crochets. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and number 28. For row number 15, we're going to start by making a single crochet. Let's make our first single crochet in the right crochet stitch. There's our first crochet, and we're going to put in our stitch marker. And next we're going to do a decrease. And then we're going to do 6 single crochets. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then we're going to do a decrease and a single crochet 2 times. So we're going to do a decrease and a single crochet, and we're going to repeat that with a decrease and a single crochet. Next, we're going to do a decrease and then move on to 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then we're going to do a decrease, then we're going to move on to doing a single crochet, and we're going to end with a decrease. And now we're finished with row number 15. Now we're ready to count our crochets. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and number 22. For row number 16, we're going to start with the sequence of 2 single crochets and a decrease. So we're going to do our first single crochet, and of course we're going to add our stitch marker to that single crochet. Then we're going to do another single crochet and then a decrease. And we're going to repeat this sequence. There's our first single crochet, our second single crochet, and then a decrease. Next, we're going to do a single crochet, and then we're going to do a decrease. Then again, we're going to do 2 single crochets and a decrease. So we're going to do 1 and 2 single crochets, then a decrease, and then we're going to do that again. So 1, 2 single crochets, and then a decrease. And now we have 2 crochets left, and we're going to end with a decrease. Now we've completed row number 16, and let's count our crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and number 16. Before moving on, we're going to stuff our head. So we're just going to place stuffing inside of our head until it's nice and firm. As we continue to stuff our head, we want to shape it so that it looks like Hello Kitty's big head. Then continue to stuff and shape. And once we have enough stuffing in the head and the shape is nice and looks like Hello Kitty, we're ready to move on to our final crochets. For row number 17, we're going to do a decrease and a single crochet, and we're going to do this 5 times around and end with a single crochet. So we're going to start with our decrease. Let's put our stitch marker in that decrease. Then we're going to do a single crochet, and we're going to do this all the way around. So here's our single crochet, and then a decrease, and again the single crochet, and we're going to do this sequence another 3 more times. And now we're finishing the 5th sequence of a decrease and a single crochet, and we're just going to end with a single crochet. And now we're finished with row number 17, and we're just going to cut our yarn, pull it through, and then we're going to finish it off. To finish off, we're going to get a darning needle, and we're going to go through the first stitch, and then next we're going to just go through the outer stitch of each crochet. So up on the outer stitch, then down on the next stitch, just the outside loop, and then we're going up on that outside loop, then down that outside loop, and we're just going to alternate just like this until we get to the end. Once we get to the final stitch, we're going to pull our yarn, and that will close our hole. Once the hole is closed all the way, we're just going to go down one of the stitches and push it through the head until we reach the top. Once we reach the top, we're going to pull the yarn out, and then we're going to press down a little bit and just cut the yarn. And now we're basically done with Hello Kitty's head. We just need the 2 ears. To make our ears, we're going to start with a magic circle, and inside the magic circle we're going to make 6 single crochets. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And now we're going to pull our tail to bring all of the crochets together. And now we're done with our first row. For our next row, we're going to do a single crochet and an increase, and we're going to do this 3 times. So we're going to start with our single crochet, and we're going to put a stitch marker on this first single crochet. Then we're going to do an increase in our next stitch. Then we're going to do a single crochet, then a increase. Oops. There's our increase, then to a single crochet, Then we're going to end on an increase. There's 1 and then 2 for our increase. Let's count our crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. For row number 3, we're going to do 9 single crochets all the way around. And here is our first single crochet. We're going to put our stitch marker in there. And now we're just going to make 8 more single crochets all the way around till we have 9 single crochets. And once we have completed our 9th single crochet, we're ready to move on to our next row. I'm just going to flip the ear so that it's easier to crochet. For this last row, we're going to do 2 single crochets and an increase, and we're going to do this 3 times. There's our first crochet, and we're going to put in our stitch marker. Then we're going to go into our second crochet, and then we're going to do an increase, and then again we're going to go into doing our 2 single crochets. There's 1, 2 single crochets, and then an increase, and we have one more sequence of this. So we're going to do our 2 single crochets. There's 1, 2, and here we're going to end on an increase. And now we're finished with that row. Let's count our crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And now that we're finished with our row, we're going to cut off the tail and pull it through. To finish it off, we're going to take a darning needle. We're going to skip the first crochet. We're going to go into the outer loop of the second crochet, pull it through, and then we're going to go back into the inner loop of that first crochet and pull it through. And then we have what looks like a crochet stitch, but it makes the ear more even and easier to sew on. And now we're going to make a second ear since we need 2 ears. I have already added an ear to the head of the Hello Kitty. The ear starts on the last stitch on the top of her head. And then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches down, and that's the bottom of the ear. So we're going to do the same on the other ear. We're going to place the ear on top of the head with the top of the ear at the last stitch on the top of her head. Once it's in place, I'm going to hold it using a small knitting needle. I have it poked in the top of the ear. It's going to go through the head and keep the ear in place. To double check, I'm just going to make sure that the bottom of the ear is on the same row as the other ear, and it is. So now we're ready to sew on the ear. I've attached a darning needle at the end of the tail, and I'm going to place the needle through the last stitch on the top of her head, and I'm going to put it through the next stitch on the head. And now I'm going to put the needle through the first stitch on the top of the ear. Following the same pattern, I'm going to go through the next 2 stitches on her head, and then through the next stitch on the ear. I'm going to continue to stitch through the head and then stitch through the ear all the way around her ear. As you can see, I'm going 1 row below where the ear sits. This allows the ear to stretch out a little bit. That way it won't sit so narrow and pointed. As we come towards the bottom of the ear, we want to make sure we're on that same row as the other ear. We're going to continue until we get to the end. Once I've sewn all the way around the ear, I'm going to poke the needle into one of the stitches at the base of the ear and then pull it through the top of the ear. And now I'm going to cut the tail off. And now we're done with adding Hello Kitty's ears. To make Hello Kitty's body, we're going to start with a magic circle. And inside our magic circle, we're going to do 6 single crochets. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then we're going to pull our tail to make our magic circle. For our next row, we're going to do an increase in each of the stitches. So we're going to start with our first single crochet. Going to add our stitch marker. Then we're going to do our second in the same stitch for our increase. And then we're going to continue making increases in each of the 6 stitches. And here we are on our last increase. And we've completed that row. And here we're just going to tighten up the middle just a little bit more. And now we're ready to move on to our next row. We should have a total of 12 single crochets all the way around. For our next row, we're going to do a single crochet and an increase. Put our stitch marker on that first single crochet, and then we're going to do an increase in that next stitch, and then again a single crochet and then an increase. And we're going to keep doing a single crochet and an increase till we are all the way around our circle. And here we should have a total of 18 single crochets. For our next row, we're going to do 2 single crochets and an increase all the way around. We're going to start with our 2 single crochets. There's 1. 2, and then an increase. We're going to just continue doing 2 single crochets and an increase until we finish our row. At the end, we should have 24 single crochets. For the next 2 rows, we're going to do 24 single crochets all the way around. So we're going to start with our first single crochet and put in our stitch marker. And then when we have 2 stitch markers, that means we finished 2 rows of 24 single crochets. So we're just going to continue our single crochets all the way around 2 rows. And then we'll meet back when we're finished. So here we have our 2 stitch markers, and each one is 24 single crochets. So we've completed our 2 rows of 24 single crochets. For our next row, we're going to do a decrease. We're going to add our stitch marker. and 4 single crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 single crochets. And we're going to repeat that all the way around. So we're going to do a decrease and 4 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And here we should have a total of 20 single crochets going all the way around. For our next row, we're going to do 20 single crochets all the way around. So there's our first single crochet, and then we're going to continue making our single crochets until we have 20 of them for this row. Here we're on our last single crochet of the row, and we should have 20 single crochets going all the way around. For our next row, we're going to start with a decrease. Let's add in our stitch marker. And then we're going to do 3 single crochets. So there's 1, 2, and 3 single crochets. We're just going to continue that sequence of a decrease and 3 single crochets all the way around. Here we're on our last 3 single crochets. There's 1, 2, and 3. And here we should have a total of 16 single crochets. For our next row, we're going to do 16 single crochets all the way around. There's 1. Oops, let's get our stitch marker. There's 2, 3, 4, and here we're on our 16th single crochet, and we're going to finish off our row. Remove our stitch marker, pull out our yarn, and then get our darning needle. Here we have our darning needle. We're going to make our fake little stitch. So we're going to skip a stitch, go to the next, and into the inner loop of our original crochet. And then we're going to just make our fake little stitch, blend in with all of the others, and then weave in our end. Just going to leave the yarn and just stuff it inside. And we're also going to stuff the inside of our little body, but before that we're going to make a little skirt. Now we're going to add a skirt to this body. So we're going to turn it upside down, and here was the last stitch that we made when we finished off our body. So we're going to count 3 rows down. There's 1, 2, 3. We're going to start here. We're going to enter in our hook, and then we're going to get our yarn, wrap it around our hook, pull it through. And then we're going to go into our crochet hold, and then we're going to go back into this stitch here, and then go into the next stitch, and then yarn over, pull through, then yarn over, and then pull through these 2 loops. We can tighten it up, and so then we have a crochet. And then we're going to continue making these single crochets by going into that previous stitch hole and into the next one. Okay, so then we're going back where we just were, the previous, and into the next stitch. Okay, so into the previous and into the next. And we're going to continue doing this until we get all the way around. Now we're in our final crochet. And here we should have a total of 20 single crochets. Now we're back where we started our skirt in this first crochet. So now we're going to do 2 single crochets and an increase. So we're going to go into this first stitch, make a single crochet, and we're going to get our stitch marker and mark it so we know where it ends. And then we're going to do another single crochet and then an increase. And we're going to keep repeating this till we get to the end of the row. So we're going to do 2 single crochets and an increase. And then we're going to end with these 2 single crochets. And here we should have 26 single crochets going all the way around. For our next row, we're going to do 3 single crochets and an increase. So there's 1. Add our stitch marker back on there. 2, 3, and an increase. Again, 1, 2, 3, and an increase. And we're going to continue to do our 3 single crochets and an increase until we get to the end of the row. And here we're going to end with 2 single crochets. There's 1 and 2 single crochets. And here we should have 32 single crochets. For the next 3 rows, we're going to do 32 single crochets all the way around. We're going to start with our first single crochet. We're going to add our stitch marker. And for every row, we're going to add a stitch marker. So when we have 3 stitch markers, we're finished with our 3 rows of 32 crochets each. So here we have our 3 stitch markers, which means we're finished with our 3 rows of 32 single crochets. And now we're going to finish off our skirt. We're going to remove our stitch markers. Then we're going to cut the yarn. Here we're going to pull it through, and then we're going to get our darning needle. And here we're going to make our fake stitch. We're going to skip a stitch and then go into the next stitch. And then go through the back loop of our beginning stitch. And here, as you can see, we have a stitch, and we're just going to make it blend in with all of the other stitches. And then we're going to weave in our end. And we're just going to cut it. And here we have our Hello Kitty dress in pink. And you can leave it in pink because the costume will still match this, but you can have it in pink or black. So here is a black dress, and we're going to use this for our costume since it's Halloween, but you can use either pink or black. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Don't forget that there's a part 2, and that's when we make the wings, the feet, and the arms, and everything else. If you found this tutorial useful, please hit that thumbs up button, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Also, hit that notification bell so you know when our new video is out. Have a fun day!